Hey guys and girls, Board now back with you for another new television review, and this is going to be me returning to the Marvel, cinematic universe technically, although it's a TV show, and this is the new Disney Plus Marvel show, which is called the Found the Felt. Oh dear, what a terrible start! I could edit that out, but no. I'm going to be a trooper and leave it in. It's called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So this is certainly for Marvel fans one of the most highly anticipated TV shows of the year. And there's 6 episodes, and they're putting up one a week, which is very traditional and very sort of beneficial for me, really, in terms of reviewing it, especially if I want to stick with it, because six, it's a tidy little number. It's not too many to commit to, and it's also handy that they're putting them out just one a week. I kind of like that. I'm quite old school in that way, but also for the purposes of reviewing on this sort of channel, I think that works out quite nicely. So the first episode of the first season is called The New World Order. So we set up these two very different characters, really. You have the Sam Wilson character, aka the Falcon, who's played by Anthony Mackie, who of course has played him in some of the Marvel films as well. And then you have Bucky Barnes, who's the Winter Soldier, or the retired Winter Soldier, as we see him in this pilot. And he's played by Sebastian Stan again, like in some of the films. So, first thing I'll say before I get into this review, well, mild spoilers to begin with, although there's not that much to ruin in the pilot. A lot of it is sort of set up stuff. But one thing I will say is that I am not an hardcore Marvel fan, and I haven't seen all of the movies. I've seen some of the recent ones, some of the older ones, but there's plenty of ones I haven't seen. I've seen all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on TV, which does become sort of relevant in this first episode of this show. But I guess I just want to put that out there because obviously not being totally in tune with what's been going on and all the cross universe stuff. There's a chance I might make a mistake once in a while. I might get something wrong, or there might be something I'm speculating about which could be common knowledge to someone more in the know. But as I said, mild spoilers, and I'll give my overall impressions. And so we set up this world where, speaking of like the the event, not the event. Damn it, God! Agents of Shield. That's it. Speaking of Agents of Shield, we're in a sort of a post-Shield world where it's mentioned quite early on that Hydra has essentially taken over that world, and we sort of open with the Sam Wilson character, and it's obviously post Rogers slash Captain America being killed off. So this is kind of a transition almost, not just for a new generation and next like wave of Marvel heroes, and the next output following obviously the dramatic end of the last phase in Endgame. But it also feels like a bit of a transition from the big screen Marvel films into the television, the slash streaming. But at the same time, obviously, many of these shows are going to have a massive budget. There's going to be a lot of cinematic qualities to them. So from that point of view, I think quite a smooth transition. But I think that is established quite nicely in the opening shot where we see Sam Wilson and he's carrying the Captain America, the shield, and sort of a voiceover about, I think sort of saying, feels like someone else's kind of thing. And I think there is something quite knowing about that. It's almost stating then that, this is coming over from the cinema, from the movies, and now this is a new chapter, and yeah, these are new characters, and obviously they're setting out in some ways a more diverse universe, which you will see in this episode. You will see quite diverse multiculturalism in the characters. Obviously, Auntie Mackie is African American. There's a couple of Chinese characters in this episode who I would expect to probably return, and yeah. So it's quite a diverse universe from the start, and probably they're trying to set out their story in that way. And I think they do a pretty decent job. I don't think there's anything when it comes to that which is too on the nose, but I think obviously that probably is a conscious effort, because obviously in the movies, whether you love them or hate them, or indifferent, I guess you might say, obviously largely what you see is, a majority of white characters over the more diverse nature. But anyway, I'll get into the broad strokes of the plot. There's as I said, there's not a lot to spoil. Anthony Mackie is introduced in the opening scene as Wilson / Falcon, and he's sort of thrown into action. We see him like being dropped out of this aeroplane, working for like the army. His mission is to like retrieve a soldier who's been like sort of kidnapped by the enemy, and it's just this sort of quite spectacular, flashy like introduction, which I think does a good job of highlighting just his abilities and what he brings to the table. Obviously, Anthony Mackie has played him in the films as well, so at this point, I think he's very much at home playing him, and I really like him as an actor. Whenever I've seen him, he always impresses me, and I think what he does well in this is, I think he has a lot of charisma and a presence and a striking look. I like the look of like his outfit in this. But at the same time, when he's playing the other side of the character, when he's meant to be the more sort of grounded Sam Wilson, and you see him with his family, and I think he does ground it very nicely. I think he's very believable. He knows how to like underplay it when he needs to, and I think it makes him a very engaging, relatable sort of hero, if you like. And there's obviously a lot of like emotion coming out, the fallout of the loss of Captain America. And one scene which tells that very nicely is that they have actually set up a Captain America museum in his honour, which we see at one point Wilson with the Don Cheadle character talking about, and that's a nice touch. I thought that was really well done. But yeah, I was talking about the contrast because that's something which I think is pretty striking, because on the other hand, we're introduced to the Winter Soldier, or the ex-Winter Soldier, who has basically been forced into retirement, and we're introduced to him talking to a therapist, and they sort of use this metaphor of him kind of coming away from service as obviously like a hero, and they sort of it's the metaphor of coming to terms with war and stuff, and the experience and the trauma, the psychological trauma, which obviously soldiers can feel at war. But I do like the contrast, because obviously we're introduced to the Mackie character in quite broad, striking visual moments. That's a very well done action scene. Actually, the scene with him dropping from the airplane. It's just very, very like punchy and cinematic and exciting. It maybe goes on for a minute or two too long, but it's an exciting scene. It really captures visually what he can do, and you get the sense of the charisma. But by contrast, when we're introduced to Sebastian Stan's character, it's a lot more like downbeat and personal, bit more kind of gritty, because we see him in close up when he's talking about the therapist, and she's basically laying out these steps for him to like make amends for his past sort of actions, and and there's a little bit of black humour in there. I think this episode is definitely tipped more in favour of the Falcon character, the Mackie character. We get to know his character a lot more with his sister and stuff, but so it's harder to get a gauge on Sebastian Stan and the Winter Soldier. I do quite like that introduction scene. I can see what they're going for with the metaphor. He sort of reminds me as an actor, and the way he comes across in this episode, as sort of like a deadpan sort of Michael Bean, out of like the Terminator and Aliens and stuff. That's sort of the way he came across to me. But I didn't get as much of a read. I mean, there's some stuff with him in this episode where he hangs around with this like elderly Chinese man who we find out later recently lost his like son, and so quite sympathetic. They have almost like a father-son type relationship, and he kind of helps him get a date with this like quite attractive girl who works at like the Chinese restaurant, and they have quite a quirky, nice little day where they basically play battleships. But he also opens up about some of its personal past. But yeah, that's mostly all you get. I mean, I think that scene's okay. I think there's some quite on the nose dialogue, which it is the weakest part of the episode. I think there's definitely some classic generic pilot sort of lines. I mean, quite early on, because they're setting up this whole thing to do with like online terrorism, and they're going to be like the main villains, at least introduced in this episode. But at one point, because they're talking about the first bit with Mackie, is sort of set in like Iraq, and there's this discussion about the regime supposedly making things better, and at one point Mackie's character says, you can sure bet that when things are made better for one group, they're made worse for another, and you can see what they're going for, but it's a little bit on the nose. It's a little bit clunky. I think they could have dialed that back a bit, but I do like the way they contrast the characters and their sort of things. And I do, because there's a bit more with Mackie, as I said, him and his sister, who's like recently like widowed, and they lost their father, and obviously Mackie's been away for like the past 5 years, like volunteering for the government as a superhero, and his sister has been left to sort of sort out the business, like this small fishing like business. Again, some of that stuff I quite like, because it's a way to like ground the character and make him into this working class sort of hero. But I also think, again, there's some dialogue which is a bit clunky. There's I think it's just maybe a bit in danger of becoming a bit too mundane and everyday, and not so much what you go for a superhero drama for, if you like. I think there's a little bit of a soapy type element there, but there's some tension because her whole attitude is, you've been away for 5 years, and don't don't sort of come barging in thinking you can solve everything. And there's this whole issue to do with, like, at one point they're trying to get a bank loan because there's like the business is struggling, and they're denied the loan basically because of a lack of income, because obviously with him going undercover and working for the government, he officially hasn't been earning the past 5 years. And there's just all that stuff. And again, I mean, see where we go with it, but there's a little bit of drama there which I think could go a long way. I think it's sort of okay. I don't mind it too much at the moment, but I think if there's too much of it, it may it could sort of bog what we want from this sort of show down. It maybe feels a bit cliched in a way, and but as long as there's not too much about it, I can't really complain. But I think that's mostly the pilot. I think it's solid enough. I think there's definitely moments that feel like a classic pilot type thing, and some of the music I thought was a bit generic. I didn't think there was. It just sounded like your typical Marvel TV show style music. I didn't think there was anything special about the music. Obviously, I enjoyed that opening sequence and the setup to the Falcon, but not a lot yet on the Winter Soldier in a way, and I wasn't as engaged in his character, but I did like, as I said, the contrast and some of the ideas. So I guess I'm mixed. I think overall I liked the first episode without it being amazing. I could see, because I think some of the problems with it might just be the typical pilot type problems that could be smoothed out in the coming episodes. I would say there's enough in there that I enjoyed that makes me think, yeah, this could be good, and this will be worth sticking with for the 6 episodes. But there's also it could also go either way. So, but mostly positive. I would say I'm mixed, but I'm more on the positive side so far, especially, as I said, with the Mackie character. And I sort of wait to be like one overall lost. I like Sebastian Stan. I think he was good, but I haven't really got a handle on his character yet. So we'll see. And I don't know yet how I feel about the main kind of this like online terrorism type plot. But there were a couple of good set pieces. So that's my thought on the pilot, the New World Order. So if you've seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you want to correct me on anything, then feel free. And as I said, because it's just 6 episodes and one per week, so I think I probably will stick this one out. Unlike WandaVision, which I sort of lost the thread with, but I will go back and watch that because I was enjoying that based on the first couple. But this is obviously the next big Marvel show. So that's the pilot. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Please like and subscribe and all that stuff. You can get me on Twitter at Keith Beard, and you can also help the channel out and help me out with a little donation at PayPal if you wish. I'll stick the donation link in the description, and I'll be back with more new TV reviews soon, and I'll be back with the next review of Falcon and Winter Soldier next week. But thanks for listening, and goodbye.